Good afternoon, and again, welcome everyone. So wonderful to see you all here for Foundations of AI in Mental Health. I hope you guys enjoyed the song that you heard at the top. What did you think? Thumbs up, thumbs down. That was a song I created today in about maybe 15 minutes through a platform called Sono. I just popped in a few things about my vision for 2026, and it gave the lyrics, and I said what vibe I wanted. So really, I hope that by the end of today, we can have a more open approach to AI, even if it's for playing and experimenting. I think that's the way that I have started. Some of you shared that you avoided and it was a nervous. I think in our field as mental health professionals, we're definitely risk averse and we think about our patient safety and security, which I think are really important given the speed at which AI is moving. So it's really important to have those in the background, but also be able to and be willing to experiment and play around and be curious about ways that we can use AI in our practices, whether for our back-end supports, but also for client interventions. So today, we're going to move through that. I have to say that definitely I came from a place of fear. Um, so I definitely understand and resonate for people who are feeling really nervous about AI. Um, I shared recently my journey. Are you hearing an echo? Okay, perfect. My journey on LinkedIn, probably over a year ago, I met up with a friend and she was definitely all in on AI. She's not a psychologist. And she just kind of really broke down some things for me. And I was like, oh, okay, I can start here, right? And it just opened up this avenue for experimentation. And then I joined the AI Learning Circle, and that also just really deepened my knowledge. So I want to share with you as well just things that have helped me to move and grow and be open to integrating AI into my business. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Dr. Charmaine Jackman. I am the founder of InnoPsych, which is a platform that's really geared to bring in inclusive and innovative mental health solutions, particularly to communities of color. So again, my AI journey is, I feel like I'm still young. I feel like I'm a toddler in this journey. I recently completed a program called automation business analyst. So that helped me really understand the automation side. And you've probably heard a lot about agents recently, may or may not. So that's really helping me to dig into that material. I'm also the author of a book that was just published in, I can't believe it's early 2026, but in May 2025, The Black Therapist's Guide to Private Practice and Entrepreneurship. And I try to bring a space of innovation into the work that I do. I want this to be an interactive conversation, so please feel free to post any questions. I will have some polls throughout. But I want to just introduce the series. So the series will start off. Today's our kickoff, thinking about AI in our private practice and in our professional practice. You don't have to be in private practice to benefit from this content or to apply it to your professional practice. But so today is really about laying the foundation, breaking down some of the terms and thinking about what does it look like from privacy and safety, what legal considerations you need to consider as you're diving deeper into this AI resources. Next week, we're going to work with myself and another expert who has built uh, uh, EHR. It's a native EHR, so it's not an EHR that's an add-on. So you'll hear a lot about how they have started from the groundwork integrating AI. It's built by three founders of color. So I'm really excited because there are not many of us in this space. And that's another reason why I'm so excited to bring some of this content to us, because we can get easily left behind in this content in the AI space. because, we're nervous about it and there's the avoidance that's real. But that means that, we get left behind. We don't have a space at the table to advocate and to influence policies. So it's really important for us to really think about how we can use our voice as mental health professionals to influence this technology. The week after that, we're going to work with a company that's built uh, a version of ChatGPT called Bastion GPT for healthcare. So it's a secure platform that you can use. I've used that, and you have more facility with that. We'll talk a lot about safety and privacy. We'll dive in more to that. And then the end of January, we're going to do some real building systems for your businesses. So that's just an overview of that. So first question for you, and let me launch my poll here. Actually, just put this one in the chat. What is the first word that comes to mind when you think about AI? Cautious, fake and unreliable, innovative, ease, risk, confidentiality, absolutely, lacks connection, poor integrity, overwhelmed. I feel that. I feel that. Time saver, biased. So yeah, I think, as we see here, many of you, I think there are two responses so far where there's the piece around time saver, right? And innovative. But most of us have like worried feelings of when it comes to AI. And I think that's pretty reflective of our field. Again, it's new technology, it's moving really fast. So before you finally understand one thing, like that's now out of date, right? So it can feel really hard to keep up because it's the pace at which it's moving is really hard. Second poll for you. You should see that appear on your screen. How do you use AI in your personal and professional life? So do you use it um, daily for personal life tasks, daily for both personal and professional, occasionally for either professional or personal, and never used it? So it looks like we have about 40%-ish have use it daily for personal and professional. All right. We have someone who's never used AI. Welcome. This is a no judgment zone. It's a judgment-free zone. Few people who use it for only for personal life. And then, so I think between some daily and occasionally for personal and professional. All right. What do we really mean when we say AI, right? I think AI has become like a catch-all for everything, and it can make it really hard to understand, like, what are we talking about? So let's break that down. So I hope that by the end of our time today, that you really have a clear understanding of what artificial intelligence means and what the different aspects of artificial intelligence mean. So AI is just a term that speaks to the way that technology mimics human intelligence to solve problems and make decisions using data and algorithms. Um, I think when we think about AI too, like in the movies, right, we see there's always the robot that goes off, right, on people, right? There are all these like doom and gloom images. Um, so it's really about how we're able to mimic human intelligence to solve problems. And I think with AI also in record speed, right? It does it faster than we can do it and more reliably. What year was AI invented, or when did it first become a thing? Just put your guess in the chat. 2000, the 90s, 76. Okay. 90s. Hey, Fern. So AI has been around since 1950. I was totally surprised by that as well. And it's in more things than we think, right? So in our GPS navigation, I think Yolanda put that in, definitely your GPS navigation. Anytime that you write an email and it suggests for you how to finish that sentence, that's AI at work. If you have an Alexa or those things that you talk to, Siri, that's AI, right? If you watch your Netflix or streaming and they suggest things for you to watch, right? That's all AI at work. So there's so many ways. And then we probably know the chat bots and the customer service people that you're talking could you keep going around in circles with. Those are also AI. So there are many, many ways in which AI is present that we may not even be aware of. Any of these surprising to you? Streaming, yes, streaming suggestions are, of course, yes. Yeah, that means computer, not just AI proper. Yeah. Yep. So yeah, AI is all around us. So let's get into like some of the concepts. And you might be familiar with some of these. We hear these a lot, right? LLM, large learning models. This is really this humongous amounts of text and data that it's used to generate human-like language and images. So think of ChatGPT, right? The model that uses is an LLM. Perplexity is one that I use, Claude, right? Those are all LLMs. Machine learning, this is that when you use the way that technology learns from data, uses data to learn and improve its results without needing explicit instructions for every situation. So there was a time where we think about coding, right? Coding is the way that humans talk to computers and gives it instructions about what it needs it to do. So prior to like generative AI, prior to machine learning, you would have to give specific instructions every time. Now that the technology is able to evolve and it can actually be able to repeat tasks without needing explicit instructions for every situation. And I'm going to break this down into an analogy that I hope many of you will get. And then the natural language processing, or NLP. This is the way computers work to understand human language. So the computers, when you give it a prompt, it's really navigating human language. It doesn't matter whether it's English, French, Spanish, right? It's able to use that language and then respond in ways that feel natural and useful for us, right? So when people talk about many people talk like they have their chat GPT, they've named their chat, right? It becomes like a partner in their business. That human-like interaction is part of natural language processing. And then generative AI is where it's like everything, the magic is happening, right? It's able to learn from patterns and structures from the LLMs, and then it can use all this knowledge to create new and original content. So it doesn't need those specific instructions every time. Now it can create on its own. It looks at patterns, and then can create new things. And so that's how I was able to create that song in 15 minutes by giving it a few things that I wanted to do It looks at patterns of reggae songs and R&B songs. It took my lyrics and then created this beautiful song that really connected to what I wanted, right? So that's generative AI at work. Again, please put questions in the chat if this is going too fast or you need clarifications. And then the algorithm is the step-by-step instructions that a computer uses to solve problems and perform tasks. And you use code, right? Coding is a huge part of that, right? Giving those instructions. Automation now is where the technology is able to perform tasks repetitively, structured with minimal input. And so you can, arrange a series of tasks together, and then you have an output, right? And then agentic automation is where now you have a number of powered agents, robots that can plan, decide, and perform tasks independently with or without sometimes minimal human input. So let me break that down for you. That's a lot, right? So I am this are coding. We'll talk about where did I lose my? We'll talk about coding and prompt engineering, vibe coding in our session at the end of the month. But I just wanted to give, the way that you talk to your LLM, your model, is through prompt engineering. And that is a whole science. Like, how do you give a prompt to get what you need? And if you have time today, I'll go over some basics. And then vibe coding is a whole nother way where you talk about not just what you want, but the vibe that you want it to give, right? The tone and the personality. And that's what I did with a song, right? I said, I want a reggae vibe. I want a reggae and R&B vibe, very smooth, right? Something to chill to, right? So that's kind of the vibe coding, is where you're talking to your model about what you want, but the personality, the colors, the feel, right? That's giving it a little bit more context. So let's break this down using an analogy. I love to cook. I love food. I just came back from Barbados, and my mom was cooking us food every single day. And I was just in heaven. Excuse me. Let me plug in my thing here. So we're going to break down these concepts using analogy of food and recipes. So think about the algorithm as a recipe, right? That is the step-by-step instructions, right? We all connect to what a recipe is. Now the LLM, imagine, so I'm from the Caribbean, that, and if you're from the Caribbean or even from America, trying to sometimes get your grandparents to give you a recipe is a challenge because they don't write it down. It's just in their head, and trying to get it from their head on paper. Like, I've sat with a relative and said, okay, give me the recipe. And then when I cook, it's like something's missing. Then I watch them like, well, you didn't tell me about that. I was like, oh yeah, sometimes I do that, right? So they're always on the vibe with their recipes too. So imagine that you have recipes from your ancestors and elders from across the Caribbean, from across the diaspora, right? So that's the LLM. Like, imagine every grandparent had a recipe that was written down for 10 generations, right? That would be your LLM. Make sense? That's a huge database. And so the machine learning now is where you get to cook these recipes over and over and adjust it with feedback, right? You taste it, you get someone to taste it, maybe you get your grandparent to taste it, tell you what's missing, and then the dish just gets better over time, right? So, but one of us doing that all of us doing that, right, is what the machine learning is doing, right? So it's taking all this big data, innovating it, repeating over time, and then making adjustments. So that's what machine learning is. Make sense? All right. Yes, I get in some head nods. Yes, I love head nods. Generative AI now is where you take your ability to cook these thousands of recipes, and then you can now invent new recipes based on all these things that you have, right? So it becomes a little more creative, right? Have you taken a parent's recipe or grandparent's recipe and then add your own twist to it, right? That's what the Gen AI is doing. It's being able to now invent new recipes based on all the patterns and all the recipes that it's based on. All right, so automation is the ability now, still using our recipe analogy, it's being able to teach the tech to produce a recipe with minimal human involvement. So how many of you have a bread maker or have used a bread maker, right? So that is innovation. I mean, automation, right? Where you put in the flour, the yeast, or whatever. I've never used a bread maker, um, but you put in all your ingredients, and at different points, it mixes the dough, then it lets it proof to rise, then it then it bakes it, right? So that is the automation process, right? So your minimal involvement is you put in the ingredients that are needed, right? The flour, the yeast, maybe the water. I don't know if they put water. I put water in my bread, right? So you put in those ingredients, and then, I don't know how long, maybe an hour later, you have your baked bread, right? So that's automation. Agentic automation is really cool. So this is where now, and this is actually in existence, where you have these smart appliances. And if anybody in the room has one, please speak up. Yes, a dash of salt, a pinch of this, exactly. Uh, so where you have now the technology can look in your fridge, track your food inventory, and then suggest recipes or a shopping list based on what ingredients you have in your fridge. Right? Isn't that amazing? So that's where that technology is going, right? Um, and then did I do this one before? Okay, natural language processing is being able to read and understand the recipes regardless of language, dialect, or handwriting. Imagine some are handwritten, maybe some are typed, right? So the natural language processing is able to use all that data, translate all that data to follow the instructions. Exactly. And like have it here, like a pinch of this, right? It translate that into something that's measurable, to taste, right? It translate that into something so that the process can be repeated in the same way over time. So I want to pause there and hear what questions you have, what connections you're making from what we just shared. So yeah, so some of the smart fridges, it can tell you if someone's left open, absolutely. If you're getting low on something, right? So this is where the technology is going. And you can see models of this in other examples as well. I think there's now the AI shopping cart where you can go through the grocery store and it can tell, it can calculate what happens and you just leave because it's paid, through whatever credit card you have on file, right? So there are ways in which all this technology um, is going. You're learning more about. Thank you, Angela. All right. Yay. Perfect. Love this. Awesome. You want something? Perfect. Awesome. Great. So good. I hope you feel grounded. And I think it's also just like, pushing people when they say AI, asking, well, what do you mean? Right? Because when we say AI, are we all saying the same things, right? So actually, now that you know these different terms, you can push people to say, well, what exactly you're speaking about, right? So you can actually get to understand what it is. So big question, will AI replace humans? So most of you said, no, AI is not going to replace humans. And I agree. But AI, it has the ability to enhance our lives in different ways, right? So AI humans understand context and nuance, but AI can process large amounts of data very quickly, right? Again, you put a prompt into your AI and you can get better response in seconds, right? Seconds. There's no way that we can't work at that speed, right? It's able to identify patterns in data. Um, it performs repetitive tasks quickly and consistently. Again, that's an advantage of AI over humans. And it doesn't get tired, right? It can keep going and going and going. It's like the Energizer Bunny, right? Um, our advantage is that we have empathy and emotional intelligence, but there are ways in which we'll talk about this in a minute that AI is able to mimic human emotion in really interesting ways, right? We still have the advantage of creative problem solving, right? We still live life. We know life be life in, and we bring that experience to addressing problems, right? AI doesn't have that. Will AI replace therapists? Ouch. What do you think? Put it in the chat. Yes or no? Maybe. Yes, no, maybe, I guess. Some therapists, to some degree, maybe. Hope not. Yes. Yes. What happens if technologies? Yeah, no, but maybe. Yeah. Ooh, good, good. I love it. I love how you're thinking. So I'll come back. I'm not gonna give you an answer yet. I'll come back to that one. So this is there's the data around some of and the research around AI and human interventions, particularly mental health, is still very, very new. And so I'm excited when I get to see studies bringing this. So this is a study that was recently published based out of Sweden. So they looked at advice that was given based on, like a Dear Abby column. So this is their version of Dear Abby. I am probably dating myself. There's probably a newer version of that. But you write into the newspaper and you ask for advice. And so they look at human responses and they trained a chat bot to respond to the different questions. And so highlight of they use 43 licensed therapists to respond to the the Dear Abby version of this. Highlights was that clinicians rated AI advice equally or more empathetic and sound than the expert advice. So clinicians, us, people like us, rated the AI advice either as equal or more empathetic than the advice written by clinicians. And then clinicians could not reliably distinguish between AI and expert authored psychological advice. They couldn't tell who was writing it, if it was an AI or a clinician. So there are definitely ways in which, again, as the technology evolves, that it's really becoming more empathetic, right? They can mimic empathy. And we're seeing real situations where people have relationships with their AI, right? They engage with it as a friend, as a partner, as someone to bring their problems to. And I think those are the maybe, right? The maybe. But here's the concerns with AI. Um, lots here. So sycophancy is this tendency for AI to be very agreeable, right? Have you noticed that? You ask it a question and it's almost to fun, right? And so when we think about our clients or clients who might be using AI for therapeutic support, it doesn't really it doesn't give negative responses, right? And even when sometimes I will be like, I'm not sure how you didn't understand what I'm asking, right? When I'm kind of challenging it. It comes, I'm really sorry about that. You're right. I should have, I should know this. I should have gone deeper, right? It kind of just really kind of like backs down. So that does not really reflect what true relationships are, right? So that's definitely one of the challenges. Um, the hallucinations, which I hate that they're using mental health terminology to describe where the AI is just wrong or lying, right? Why call it a hallucination? It's just fabricated information. So AI will fabricate information. And so that is one of the huge problems with that in some ways it cannot be reliable. You cannot trust all the output. You have to go in and check. And there, I'll share a little example recently of a company that got into big trouble by just blindly relying on AI. Um, talk about the social connections as well. So, algorithm bias, one of the huge things, and I think of this particularly when we think about communities of color, is that the data that it's used is used on primarily white, American, and male experiences, right? So, I see this a lot when you try to create images, the default will always be a white person. I was just trying to create a cover for my song, and I said, "Give me a beach, woman in the water. She's coming out of the water." And it was a white woman in a white dress. And I'm like, oh, I guess I needed to put black woman, right? So there's going to be those biases in the algorithm. Um, a lot, I think, as we've learned from social media and young people, I think we're going to see some very similar concerns um, around the impact of overuse. We've even seen recently that OpenAI shared that it will have adult content on their platform, right? So there are ways in which we have to be really mindful of adolescents' exposure, what they're seeing on these platforms. The huge thing is the environmental impact. It takes lots of energy and water to run these large data systems. And we see inequities in where these data centers are housed and their environmental policies. So when these data centers are in developed countries, you see better policies, and you see a very different aspect when they are in developing countries. And of course, ethical concerns. So let's get into that because I am running out of time. But we have lots more of these conversations coming, and the reason why I want to start an AI learning circle for mental health professionals, because we need to be in spaces together, learning together, pushing each other along. So this is an example. Deloitte here, they provided a report to, I think it was Australian government with lots of mistakes. With research, you'll see that sometimes your platform, your LLM will give you research links. And I've had that where it give me this research, cite this research, and then I go look for it and I can't find it anywhere, right? It's not real. So it fabricates information. So they published this report or gave this report to their clients and had not done any checks, and they had to give their money back. Um, So in this example, I asked the AI to create, I get the first one I did back in October, and I said I wanted you to give me an image that documents the changes in music players over time. So where's the hallucination? You can put it in the chat or you can unmic.
Is it the tape?
So here's that you see a boombox.
Oh, boombox.
It
Oh,
gave me two of them, right? It's like, dude, you gave me a boombox, it's a vinyl player, and so it had a lot of trouble kind of getting it right. Here it did a little better, but I've never seen an 8-track player. But do they usually? I think I did check, and I think they also came together. So I think this got pretty close, the Walkman, the Discman, iPod. So this got pretty close. So these are things that, you get to do, but again, it took a while. If I didn't know what a vinyl player was, I could have put that image out and not realize like, oh, this actually made up stuff that's not real. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to talk about was cognitive debt. And I'll go over this one quickly, but basically, this is where we are kind of losing our brain cells when we outsource things to our technology. So, for example, how many of you still put in directions in your GPS for location that you go to all the time? My excuse is like, I'm just checking on traffic. So this is basically a study that looked at three conditions where they had you either had to write an essay, use an LLM to write it totally, and then I think the third one, element brain. Right. So you were writing an essay using your own information, or you were using an LLM to write the essay. And they had like three different sessions. Basically, what they found was the people who wrote the essay were able to remember the content better, could speak more intelligently about the topic than those who relied on the LLM to write it. They just had less connection. And then they looked at the neural networks, like the brain activity. Of course, there was less neural networks for the people using an LLM than for those using their brain power, right? So all of that makes sense. So just be mindful of when you're using, when we're outsourcing our brain power, just be mindful, right? So I was going to also use this analogy of like phone numbers. How many of you remember phone numbers now? How many phone numbers of people you know? And I honestly, I probably only know my husband's and my phone number. I don't even remember my mom's phone number anymore. And as a kid, I was like the yellow pages. People would call me for everybody's phone number. Ethical issues, a huge thing, right? Data protection is a big one. So I think the highlight here, bias, right? We talk a little bit about that in terms of the LLMs and the algorithm bias. A huge one is definitely data privacy. And so big highlight, never put client information into an LLM. You can also put on your privacy settings so you don't share your data with the creator. Those are some practices. And then using platforms that are private and secure, right? That is built in. It's really important that you take a look at the APA ethical guidelines. Those just came out this year. I'm a member of the APA's mental health tech committee. And so this is one of the things that we were really pushing for and supporting. So make sure that you understand when you're using AI. I would say definitely read these ethical guidelines and I'll send this out to you guys in an email so you can find that. I think I see a lot of uses in healthcare with documentation, and so recording the sessions, even a transcript for documentation and for writing your progress notes, which is I think one of the huge benefits is that it kind of takes away some of that burden of progress notes. I know some of y'all in here, we've had lots of conversations about progress notes, right? Keeping up with them. But you have to inform your client every time if you're going to use AI transcriber to take notes, right? So just be really mindful of provided informed consent both in your intake form and verbally at the beginning of each session. I think some of the legal concerns I think is really important. As I just mentioned, obtaining consent, thinking about, again, sharing client data, making sure that your tools are vetted to avoid leaking PHI, protected health information. And always remember that AI is a support tool. It is not the clinical decision maker. So again, you can put your note in and get a diagnosis, right? But you still need to use your clinical judgment. There's certain tasks that are going to help you do faster, but you still need to be in the lead. And one of my friends, Angela, she says this all the time: humans in the lead. We cannot just outsource everything and particularly our clinical knowledge to the AI. We know better, right? And licensing boards aren't going to sanction the AI. They're going to sanction you. Um, so AI won't replace therapists, but it could definitely replace therapists who don't use AI effectively, right? And so I think that is the highlight, is that it is a tool, and we have the capacity to use it to help us not only with our back end support, but also like thinking about interventions that we do in our clinical decision making and our report writing. There are ways that, I think there's one study that showed that, for average for writing a psychological report might be 2.5 hours. AI platform can do that in 90 seconds, right? So there's really efficiencies in time. I've been playing around with Bastion GPT and some psychological evaluation templates and seeing how it comes out. And so I'm working on bringing that to my practice. But again, doing that without including client information, making sure that I have a business associate agreement with the company, and ensuring that I understand how data is being used. So we have a couple more minutes. I think I'll just highlight quickly. We know in August when I went to APA, I walked the exhibit floor and I was amazed at how many new products were out there around AI integrations for our businesses, particularly from the business end. A lot of them were progress note tools, some of them were mood trackers, a lot of EHR products. So there's definitely a high market, and there's a lot of targeting of products towards the mental health space. There's also research tools for coding transcripts from focus groups. So there are ways in which, the technology is moving really fast. It can be very helpful. But I also think there's an opportunity to think about ways that you can engage with clients. Like I said, I use I'll show you. I think about using some tools with client engagement. I think I have a poll on that one. No, I don't. Okay. Um, so do you guys have a practice of asking AI, your clients about their AI use?
Dr. Charmaine, can I share something really quickly?
Yeah, absolutely.
Regarding this, I have not, but clearly after today I will. But in a listserv that's public on Facebook or something, one of the therapists shared that her client came with a list of her treatment goals that she had generated from AI, and it was more than 3 pages. So, so they're
Exactly,
doing,
right.
they don't know what they're doing, but they're doing it.
Right, right, exactly. So then how do you coach that client through? Like that is way too much, right? And I think that's the thing about the AI. It can give you lots of information, but what are you going to do with it, right? So these are some sample AI questions that I think we should think about including in our intake forms. Again, I can share this out afterward, but how are you using AI for emotional support, right? And I think it's important to ask in that way versus like, do you use AI for emotional support? You assume that they are, right? And if they're not, then they tell you, right? How often do they use it? Do they tell their AI things that they don't tell other people, including you, right? How do they feel after using their AI? Um, and oh, right, I love this one. Have you ever received advice that felt confusing or upsetting, right? So really being able to understand how they're using AI, how they are understanding the benefits and risk of the AI, and how and also making it a space, a non-judgmental space for them to bring that into this therapy session. Um, I'm going to pause here. So this is these are tools that that I've been checking out. Um, so the Sono is the music one, and then you'll share this. I'll have this. I've been really having a lot of fun playing around with that. I love music. This is our avatar. My daughter and I created that together. So her name is Shimon. It's a joint of my name and her name. So it was really cute. We had a lot of fun doing that. I have a wearable device called the Bee. And so I use this for transcribing conversations, but I always let people know ahead of time. So wherever I go, this is with me. And then there's a app on the phone, and I can use that transcript. I put that in the chat GPT as I summarize, give me the action steps, right? I have a template, what I wanted to do. So it makes kind of taking meeting notes really easy. Notebook LM is really cool. I can't wait to bring this to the Learning Circle. It will, so actually what I'll do after this call today, I'll create a notebook LM and share with you. It can often give you like a podcast version of the conversation. It can give you a slide deck. So there's just so much things that you can do. Lovable, you can create websites and landing pages in seconds, right? Gamma is for creating websites as well. So yeah, so lots of really cool tools. And I think some of these, like the Sono, I think these are really creative ways that you can use music in your session. But if you have a client who loves music, teenager, let's create a song together or create a song based on some of the challenges you have. What do you want to say to your mom, right? List some of those things and then create a song, right? So they're really cool ways that you can think about using AI. So, so my goal is we have the series, as I mentioned. So every Friday at this time, I think the last session will be 1 p.m. Eastern, because that one is we're working with a group out of Chicago. But my goal is to start the learning circle in March. Kind of like we are today, we'll come in, it'll be limited to 15 people. So I want people who are interested in learning and can give the time. And it's really about thinking about how we can experiment, sharing what we've known, what we've gained, and thinking about what other skills we want, how we want to upskill to improve our practice and our business. I think, again, the opportunity for mental health professionals is that with these skills, particularly for BIPOC mental health professionals, is that we can be leaders in this, right? This can then become a way that you can help other professionals build, and build their businesses using AI. So that is the goal for the learning circle. I'll share more about that. But this was wonderful. Clearly, much more content. You can see how excited I am about this, but I hope that you leave here feeling more open and more curious about checking it out and playing around, keeping the human in the lead. Like we need to be in the lead. I would say keep the clinician in the lead. And I think being aware of ways that we can advocate at different levels, within our organizations, within our divisions, and nationally. Because if we're not at the table, if we don't understand, we can't be at the table, we can't be a voice. So thank you all for coming. I have one last poll. Quickly, how would you rate the session? And hope to see you all next week.